What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So it's election season again, and we need to talk about Social Security and Social Security reform. Every time we start getting close to elections, I like to talk about this because we need to know how politicians feel. Are they in support of reforming Social Security? Where are they when it comes to Social Security? And also, where are they when it comes to an increase for Social Security benefits? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about reform. I'm going to show you a clip. This is Dr. Oz. He's going to be talking about Social Security and Medicare. And I think this is important because this can give you an idea. Dr. Oz is a part of the current administration. So this can give you an idea of where they want to go when it comes to reforming Social Security. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let me show you this clip. Now, I'll show you the clip first, and then we're going to go back because there's some stuff that he says on here that is just not correct, and I want to make sure you guys understand what's going on when it comes to Social Security. So let's go ahead and play the clip. Here we go.
If we could get the average American, because they feel healthy, they're vital, they're strong, they have agency over their future, to start working a year earlier, right out of high school, or work a year later, not retire, or work better during their lifetime because they're healthy, it would generate about $3 trillion. $3 trillion to the U.S. economy. That would more than remove the debt. It would provide us unbelievable strength because the taxes on that $3 trillion would allow us to keep Medicare Part A solvent, to make a trust fund. It would allow us to make Social Security healthier, tremendous downstream benefits. But to do that, you actually have to invest in making sure people want to work the extra year.
So there was Dr. Oz talking about working longer, actually starting earlier and working longer, basically is what he's saying there. That would generate about $3 trillion. That would help pay down our debt. Now, our current debt sits at $38 trillion. $38 trillion. And he's talking about $3 trillion, and that $3 trillion would be generated by having people work longer. Okay, now, we've heard this before. We've heard politicians say we need to raise the retirement age. That's why they're saying this. They're saying raise retirement age from either, 67 where it is now to maybe 68, 69, or 70. And so what Dr. Oz is saying is that if we raise it by 1 year, so from 67 to 68, we would have enough money through taxes. Okay, so people are working longer, they're contributing that payroll tax, they'll have enough money to reform Social Security and extend it out longer, which they can extend it out longer by doing that. However, it's not going to be that much longer. Why? Because 1 year is not going to amount. 1 year of payroll taxes coming in is not going to amount to in reforming Social Security to where we don't have to worry about it for another 20 to 50 years. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to bring in enough revenue. And so what we're seeing right now is politicians that are saying things, and even if we do the things that they're saying, it's not going to reform Social Security. We're still going to have an issue. And then the $3 trillion that he's talking about, I just showed you, $38 trillion, that's what our debt looks like. So even if this were to be implemented, you increase the working age to 68, so a lot of people won't be retiring at 67, that is still not going to fix the problem because $3 trillion paying down a $38 trillion debt. And then you also need to understand the interest on our debt is about $1 trillion. So you might bring in $3 trillion, but $1 trillion is just going to go to pay down the interest, and then you'll have $2 trillion that can go to pay down the debt. And so this is not really going to help the way that Dr. Oz is saying that it would. What we need to do is spend less money. We spend too much money every year. We deficit spend, and then that money just tacks on to our national debt. That's what we need to do. So when you start talking about we need to raise a full retirement age, all this stuff, there are other ways that we can do it. But politicians just aren't willing to do that. What politicians are willing to do is to tell those people who've worked 30 or 40 years, guess what? You're going to have to work longer in order to receive your full benefits. And that's what our politicians are focused on. They're focusing on people who really need the money the most. They're saying you need to work longer. And in previous videos, I talked about how you can reform Social Security. And I'm going to continue saying this, especially now that we're in election season. We can find out how these politicians feel about raising the cap. If you raise the cap right now, people who are contributing, they're contributing to the payroll tax. So if you're working, you're contributing 6.2%, your employer's matching that 6.2%. That goes to Social Security and it helps pay out benefits. And they also have a trust fund. The trust fund sitting at about $2.6 trillion right now. And that's also helping pay out benefits at 100%. But the problem is that $2.6 trillion, they're slowly drawing from that every month to help pay out benefits at 100%. And so if we get to that point, and they're talking, it could be 8 or 9 years. If we get to that point where we haven't reformed Social Security, those trust funds will be completely depleted. And what that would mean is that there's going to be a cut across the board for people receiving Social Security benefits. That's why you need to reform Social Security. The easiest way to do it is by raising the cap. And so people making over $184,500 will have to start paying into Social Security or continue paying into Social Security. Because basically the way it works is you pay into Social Security up until $184,500. Once you reach that level, you no longer have to contribute to Social Security, that payroll tax. But if we were to increase that, raise the cap, so more and more people are continuing to pay into the payroll tax, that is going to help secure those trust funds, and we won't see the trust funds depleted. But the reason that politicians don't want to do that is because they don't want to tax those people that are making that level of money. They want them to be tax-free. Once they get to that level, they no longer have to contribute, and so they'll have more money in their pockets. That's what they want to do, and that is just not going to work. We have to reform Social Security, and you're going to have to pull that money from somewhere. You can't just say, well, you're going to have to work longer, because that's not going to be able to bring enough money in to satisfy the situation where we're looking at Social Security, paying out benefits at 100%. If we do nothing, they're going to have to cut benefits. They'll have to cut benefits by about 20%, 20 to 23%. So that's what we're looking at right now. And that's why it's important for us to be paying attention and listening to people like Dr. Oz, who are part of the current administration, talk about this, because they're giving you clues. They're telling you, look, you might have to work longer, because that's what we think is going to solve the problem. Or you might have to start working earlier. And he said you could start working right after high school. Well, what about college? That means that you're going to have a lot of people that aren't going to be going to college because they're going to be working full time because they have to start and work earlier. And then where's the promise to them? What are they going to see when it comes to Social Security benefits? Because as I stated, if you tell them, okay, if you start working earlier, then we'll have enough money through payroll tax, we'll have enough money to pay your benefits out at 100%. But as I stated, that is not the case. The math just doesn't add up. And if you had Dr. Oz go through the math, he will tell you, you know what, yeah, it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't. Raising it by 1 year or starting a year earlier is not enough revenue to come in to pay out benefits at 100% and extend that out for another 20 to 50 years. Because you have to understand, those people that have just graduated high school, they're going to start contributing earlier, and they might say, you know what, I'm going to forego college and I'm going to start working and pay into Social Security. That way, when I get to the age of, at the time, we don't know, it might be 68, 69, or 70. When I get to that age, then I can start drawing down on Social Security. And so you're thinking that, and then you have other politicians that are saying, well, that's not exactly how it's going to work. We might have to privatize Social Security by that time. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. There are politicians out there that want to make you work longer, and they're making it sound good. They're saying, well, you know, if people are healthy, then they'll want to work longer. Well, some people might be healthy, but they want to do other things. They want to travel. They want to do things, you know, in retirement. You don't want to work until you can't really physically go and do some of these things that you wanted to do all your life. The American dream is for you to work hard, get to the point where you can retire, and then live a nice retired life where you can do a lot of things, where you're not, you know, too old where you can't do those things. And so you have Dr. Oz wrapping up retirement like in this bow, telling you, look, if you're healthy, you can work longer. Some people don't want to work longer. And so that might not be an option for everyone. And then one more thing, if you raise the full retirement age up, saying people can work longer, are you going to raise the minimum retirement age up? The minimum retirement age right now is 62. They could raise that up maybe from 62 to 64. That means those people at 62, they're not going to be able to retire. They'll have to wait to 64. And then when they retire at 64, they're only going to get a portion of their retirement. Just like right now, if you take it at 62, if you take it early, you're going to, I think they reduce it by about 35%. So they're going to reduce it by 35% if you take it early. If they move that up, then now you'll be taking it at 64, or even could be 65, depending on how high they raise the full retirement age. Then you could be at a situation where you have to wait until 65. And guess what? Years ago, people started receiving their full retirement benefits at 65. Now you could be receiving a reduced benefit by 35% at 65. And so this is the time. This is the time to get out and start finding out what these politicians, how they feel about reforming Social Security, because your vote counts. And remember, Our future is on the ballot. So when these politicians start talking about, yeah, I think we should raise the full retirement age, guess what? That could impact you if you're working right now and you're thinking, maybe I want to retire at 67. I don't want to wait until I'm 70, or I don't want to wait until I'm 69. And so that's why it's important for us to focus on how these politicians feel about Social Security reform. And then one more thing. Now, I know I said one more thing before, but this is the final thing. When it comes to Social Security and Social Security reform, they have to start now. They have to reform Social Security now. You can't wait. If you continue to wait, it's going to be more. You're going to have to pay more. So when we're talking about, let's say, raising the cap or even raising the payroll tax, that's another thing you can do. Raise a payroll tax across the board. And so everybody working right now, instead of contributing 6.2%, maybe contribute 7.2% or 8.2%. It's not that much in the big scheme of things. You're not going to see a big difference in your check, but it's going to help down the road to secure Social Security, which means that you'll be able to receive your full benefits at 100%. But it's important that politicians take it up now, reform Social Security. So that means pass it through the House, pass it through the Senate, and have the president sign off on it. The longer we wait, and we only have about 8 years, 8 to 9 years, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be, the more drastic we're going to see. So if they do raise that payroll tax, it might be, instead of raising it 1% or 2%, you might have to raise it 5% because you waited. And so that's why they need to act. If they would have acted 10 years ago, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now, because Social Security, the trust funds, would be secure, and it wouldn't even be an issue. But the fact that they are putting it off because you have some politicians out there saying, no, we can't tax wealthy people. We don't want to tax the people who are over that cap, or we don't want to tax people across the board, people who are paying into the payroll tax. But I'm telling you, if you were to sit down with the American people and say, look, this is the situation that we're in. In 8 years, we're going to have to reduce your benefits by 20 or 23%. If you tell them that, and then you say, look, if we increase the payroll tax by 1%, we can extend it out for another 25 years. If we increase the payroll tax by 2%, then we can extend it out for another 50 years. I think most people would say that that's reasonable, because that 1% or that 2%, that's not going to be a big hit to me, and it's going to assure that I get Social Security at 100%. So I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.